Hello, my name is Mary Neely. I am a tutor, a teacher, a parent, and the founder of Evolved Education Company. We are a full-service tutoring and advisement company for all of your educational solutions. On this podcast, we'll explore ideas, techniques, and resources that you can use to support your school-aged child to conquer any learning issue. I'm so glad you're here.
Hello. So in conclusion, I'm going to take one more question from episode number 2 because we had a lot of questions after that one. There was a lot of responses to the mistakes that I listed in episode 2. So if you haven't had a minute to get back to episode 2, please do so. I'm sure you'll find it valuable because a lot of people have. So we had questions already about the cognitive load piece, which was episode 3. And then we had a question about strengths from actually a teacher, and that was in episode 4. And in this particular question, it is from a mom who says, we read about you and listened to your podcast. We wanted to talk with you a little bit more about the students not being in the driver's seat. We are really struggling with this in our home in that we feel like our student who is now in the 7th grade is not owning anything that is coming from school. And we are not sure how to release the ownership to our child. Do you have any ideas for us, not necessarily knowing him? So agree. I mean, listen, it's hard to kind of give you exact advice on this based on the question that you've given me, but I will give you a couple of ideas, generally speaking, to address this. And I have seen it a million times over. It's a very, very, very common issue where we have students who are disengaged in their learning and they do not have ownership over what they're doing. And I would say that the reasons for all of this behavior is worth unpacking because in my experience, it could be for so many different reasons. And you really want to be sure you're addressing the right, well, not right, I don't want to make it seem so black and white, but the reason that's going to give you the impact that you want, which is for your student to have more ownership, right? So the place I would really start is in a conversation with your student. So just to give you another resource, there is an educator here at Evolved Education Company named Becky Reback, who is a trained collaborative and proactive solutions provider. And I took her course and also did some coaching work as a parent under her, and my child's school also utilized the program. I found it to be extremely helpful in giving me the language and the tools to have these kinds of conversations I'm about to teach you with children, especially with teenage children. I think that's where we also kind of feel a little bit at a loss, I think, a lot of times. But what I will tell you is that you need to ask your child more about why they are disengaged, and you want to ask the question given an observation that you've made that's very, very concrete. So maybe you're noticing that your child does not turn in their work. Maybe you say, hey, I noticed that you haven't turned in your history work this week. What's up? And in that question, you allow your child to respond with their perspective of what's happening in the situation of not turning in that work. I would stay away from very vague statements. So if you notice that your child is not owning their work as a student, or they're not, driving their process of learning, those are very big statements that to a kid doesn't really resonate. I think it's better if you observe a particular situation in which that's happening. And even though you may feel like you're not addressing everything going on, remember what I taught you in episode 3 about cognitive load, bring it down to one issue for right now. And again, the collaborative proactive solutions does teach you how to list all of your problems that you're having with your students and prioritize one lagging skill to address. So there's an underlying philosophy here that the program teaches, which I really, really subscribe to, which is that when children can do, they do. And I think we have to realize that if a child is not owning their work, there is an element of that happening for them and that they cannot own their work for some reason. And it becomes our job as the adults in the room to be curious about why that is the case. And we want to assume that if this child could own his work or her work or their work, that they could and they would. Okay. I think a lot of times we as adults make a tremendous, and I'm really guilty of this too, but making a lot of assumptions about what students are experiencing and why they're doing what they're doing. A lot of times we go in and think, well, this kid is just defiant, like they don't want to do this well. They are trying to sabotage everyone in this family. They are really acting out. I just want to present the case that it's most likely none of that. It's most likely that your child cannot do what they're being asked to do, so they're not engaging. So you want to find out a little bit more about what are the lagging skills that are preventing my kid from owning this work. And this is where partnering again with the collaborative and proactive solutions provider, as well as a tutor, can be most efficient in this work, because you can figure out a little bit more about what the child's reasoning for some of this is, and then really build that strategy around that lagging skill. So I just I'm trying to think of an example of in my work that I've done with students. And I think one of the most interesting cases actually came with a seventh grader as well, who was really struggling to turn in work. This is a big deal in seventh grade. I think it's a lagging skill that is it exists across the board a lot of times, but this particular kid was struggling to turn in work. And it actually came out from the student that the student was afraid to be evaluated. And what we did was we went back to what the student was going to be evaluated on to show the student specifically, these are the measures you're going to be evaluated on. Understanding that rubric and what they were going to be evaluated on allowed them to have more peace with turning in their work, because it felt more clear to them as to how the evaluation would happen. So sometimes it's just a solution that you can't, as an adult, even comprehend without asking your kid, if that makes sense. I did this work, as I mentioned, with my own kids, and we were during the pandemic having dinner together for the first time ever. And one of my kids just would never come up to dinner. It was a stall. It was a stall. It was a stall. It was really irritating because everyone would be waiting. And we worked with Becky to uncover this and to figure out what to do. And when we asked him why he wasn't coming up to dinner, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, he's such a pain. He just wants to keep playing. Like, that's what I was thinking. He just wants to keep playing. But in actuality, he says, I'm just not hungry at that time. I feel like I would be better able to eat a half an hour later. So then we came up with a solution to our problem, which had to be mutually agreed upon and reasonable. That's part of the rules of the CPS model. That we would move dinner back a half hour. And as soon as we did that, I kid you not, the behavior went away completely and we were problem solved, and it really hasn't been an issue ever since. So this is how powerful this approach can be. And I really urge you to get this kind of support with your seventh grader and help them through this issue. It's really, really helpful at this age to partner with your student, because if you ignore it and wait for it to go away, they're never going to be able to really build the skills in a way that will be impactful later on. So, okay, well, we'll end there. And again, if you have any further questions, please do feel free to write us in. I'm going to take, in the next couple episodes, we're going to do a couple interviews. I know I'm going to be speaking with a couple of my previous students who helped me create the paradigm, which is going to be really interesting for you to hear from them. And one of our tutors who does a lot of work on anxiety in learning. And then we're going to talk a little bit about executive functioning. So we're going to get into that topic in our next series of straightforward episodes. So again, if you have a question, you can submit it to us at hello@evolveded.com. And if you are a parent and you would like to have services from us, you can book a complimentary 15-minute phone call with us to learn about how we work and how we can serve you. Then if you're an educator or someone who's supporting kids in a tutoring capacity, you can join our teaching school membership platform where we do a deeper dive into different areas and offer you support for your work that you're doing, which is such a good platform. I love being there to learn as well and be supported in my work. So please come on over and check us out, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you so much for listening to Evolved Education. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and write a review. You can send us any and all educational questions to hello@evolveded.com, and we'll try to address it in our upcoming episodes. That's Evolved Ed, EVOLVEDED.com. To learn more about how we can support you, go to evolveded.com and book a complimentary 15-minute phone call with us. Are you a professional educator? You can join our teaching school membership platform to gain support and engage in a community interested in learning together. Click on the link in our show notes to learn more.